Hell's Kitchen is currently playing at the Sam S. Schubert Theater in New York City. And while we saw the performance on March 29th, the day after it had its first performance at the venue, opening night is April 20th. So to summarize the musical, different thing that I usually say, Allie is 17 years old, lives in New York City with her mom in this very fancy apartment building where there's nothing but artists from the top floor to the bottom. And her mom, Jersey, works multiple jobs in order to maintain the lifestyle that Allie has grown up in. But unfortunately for Jersey, Allie's starting to smell herself a little bit and she wants a boyfriend. And unlucky for Jersey, but good for Allie, a boy who plays buckets outside the building named Nuck, who has to at least be somewhere in his 20s. He is a person who she likes, and while there's some pushback originally, eventually they get together. Now, as you can imagine, no person who is the parent of a 17-year-old girl is going to be comfortable with a 20-something-year-old dating their kid. And you would think that Allie's dad Davis would get involved, but unfortunately, he's the type that's there for a good time, not a long time. So while he pops his head in every now and again, he's not a consistent presence either in Jersey's life or Allie's. But with feeling very controlled and frustrated by her mother, Allie finds herself going into the Ellington room of her building, and that's where she meets Miss Liza Jane. And before you think I'm not going to give away the whole story, but point of the matter is, it's in meeting Liza Jane that Allie finds a love outside of Nuck that allows her to process her emotions in ways that she can't with her mother or especially her father. The best thing about this is both Miss Liza Jane and Brandon Victor Dixon, who plays Davis. Miss Liza Jane, what's the actor's name? I have to say her name out loud. Miss Liza Jane is played by Kecia Lewis, and she is the type of performer that makes you wish that when it came to new productions like this, it wasn't always focused on some teen, 20, or even 30 something, that it would give people who are veterans and have longer time on stage or in the industry parts and give them that breakout role as a lead. Because truly, Miss Liza Jane is a character that don't play, and when you see how Allie talks to her mom and all that, Miss Liza Jane gets her together, I swear to you, Miss Liza Jane and Miss Lewis in extension has such a commanding presence and voice that even though you know Miss Liza Jane is talking to Allie, if she says to sit up straight, you will sit up straight in your damn seat. It is hilarious. But at the same time, what's interesting is that Jersey recognizes Miss Liza Jane's authority over Allie, and for lack of a better term, to the point where she gets a little bit insecure about her parenting. And it really helps you understand that when it comes to certain characters, supporting roles, whatever, every single person counts. And I would dare say, on a slightly unrelated note, if they were to ever do, hopefully a play, not a musical, on Maya Angelou, even though I don't think Kecia Lewis has the height to play Maya Angelou, who was over 6 feet tall, if I recall correctly, she definitely has that presence, she has that voice. So I can only hope that she gets the breakout that she deserves in the future. Now, getting to Brandon Victor Dixon, the man knows how to sing. The man knows how to woo you to the point that, like how Miss Lewis knows how to command you, even if you ain't the one on stage. Mr. Dixon, if you are into men, I'm pretty sure he's gonna be, it's gonna feel like you're going to a Maxwell concert, Al Green, whatever, and you're gonna be like, is he singing to this woman on stage or is he singing to me? Because he's the type of singer who knows what his voice is able to do. So when he goes high, low, just really turns out his voice, makes it, you got to make that nasty spell something face with the way he does it, because it seems like he knows the basics. He knows how to handle any of these songs from Alicia Keys. So he decides to put the sting on it to make it clear that no one else can play this role. Never mind, no one else can play this role as I can. Which leads to the regular highlights. The first being that when it comes to the choreography and dancing, even though we have some issues with it that we'll mention later on, I will say that it doesn't feel like generic Broadway flair with a bunch of cartwheel kicks or whatever it's called, tap dancing and all that. Instead, it's New York. There's a certain level of hip hop in there, very little tap, but overall, it feels like the choreography is meant to go with what the musical is about and where it's set in, rather than it just be a usual choreography that could be interchangeable from one show to the next. Which leads to the next highlight, which is low key. Maybe should have been like the notable highlights with Dixon and also Miss Lewis, but I have to say, as someone who's an Alicia Keys fan in terms of the singles, more so than like deep cuts, the duets that you see in this musical are the best things about this, especially in regards to Allie as a character. Whether it's her duet with Jersey toward the end of the musical No One, when they're singing No One, her duet with Nothing, which they sing Unthinkable Already, or else a tear-inducing, straight up, Like You'll Never See Me Again. That is when she shines. And oh yeah, Allie and Davis doing If I Ain't Got You was one of the cutest moments of the whole musical. And in many ways, unfortunately, that's the only time when you're really focused on Allie and think that this character and the performance deserve to be front and center. Before we get into the low points and on the fence portion, let it be known, technically, you shouldn't judge any production by what comes off in previews since they're still working out the kinks. But in my mind, this was at the public theater before it moved to its current theater. And on top of that, anything that costs $80, $90, $100+ you better have it right before you start putting on a show. Previews can be a very valid excuse, but I wouldn't say it's an excuse that holds too much weight when you're asking people to pay so much. But that's just me. But getting to the point. Low point number one is that the dances pop out many times when it doesn't feel necessary, and it kind of ruins some of the moments. Like the aforementioned duets, a lot of times dances pop out, and it's not like one or two dances trying to accentuate the scene, but it's like everybody pops out, and you're just like, was that necessary? Did you really need to kill this two-person moment by now having 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10+ people now on stage? And another thing that often ruins moments within the musical is that if the song isn't a ballad, and if it isn't handled by someone like Dixon or Lewis who knows how to keep control of the situation, the musicians will definitely drown out whoever's on stage, to the point where if you don't have captions, you're not going to really know what line are they in and what verse, what's being said, because they will make it very clear that y'all might be the ones who get all the marketing, but we are the ones who are going to make sure that we are heard. Which leads it on to fence topics. I start this off by talking about Allie, and I have to admit it's a bit challenging because, one, I don't know the actress to say whether this was her first role or not, or whether this is a breakout, but in many ways, it feels like Allie is not like the lead character, but also part of an ensemble. Granted, the way Allie is treated, with her having, breaking fourth wall moments and all that, it's clear that Allie is the lead. However, because of how Dixon sings and acts, the power of Miss Lewis and her performance, it feels very much like they brought on this young talent who has the look that could be marketed out. But in terms of having all that it would take to really hold and control a show, she's still working on that. And this isn't like, for example, some of the Donna Some musical had Lushins, I think that's how you pronounce her name, in it. And from that, because she's a veteran, knows what she's doing and everything, I wouldn't say she left the biggest impression compared to Ariana DeBose, who got Tony nominated, later won Oscar for being Anita in West Side Story. But there was no denying that she still had the presence. She still had the power where she didn't have to work as hard in order to show she belonged there. Never mind, should be considered one of the selling points of the show. With this, Allie, who you would assume is Alicia Keys, heavily lives off of name association, what songs you expect her to sing, rather than being the type of performer, written or acted out, I should say, that makes you think this is the selling point. Which I mean in the nicest way possible. But one of the reasons why we're not really into Allie isn't just because, she doesn't have the voice of Dixon in terms of really getting to show they are a talented singer, or the presence of Miss Lewis, which makes you have to pay attention to what she says and does. Part of the issue is also when it comes to Allie and Nuck's relationship, it being very difficult to get into because you do not know how old Nuck is. Nuck is a person who got a job, seems to have grown-ass man problems, and Allie is 17. Now, yes, you can argue maybe she's turning 18 in a few months or whatever type of nonsense you want to do, but it'd be one thing if Nuck was straight up saying, hey, I'm 18, 19, like, okay, not a big age difference, but him coming off like he's in his 20s, maybe mid-20s, maybe even beyond, and he's from the start trying to push away this girl like, this seems wrong, but then giving in, it makes it all too creepy. And even though the duets definitely make you forget about that issue, it always comes right back when it becomes clear that there's an age difference between them. And it just really makes it so, because so much of Allie's story is based off of this relationship, it just makes it hard to get into maybe her character and story, and that could be perhaps the main issue I'm having. But what also doesn't help is that when Allie is learning to play piano with Miss Liza Jane, you can see the musicians. Like, the piano player is on the far right hand side of the stage, and they're not like in the back in the cut where you can't see them. You can see the man's clearly, or woman, I don't know, they're far back and I didn't check. Anyway, you can see them clearly playing the piano while you think it's Allie and Miss Liza Jane, and it kind of takes you out of the moment. So that combination of Allie and Nuck's relationship being kind of creepy, and then when it comes to showing Allie's musicianship and her learning how to channel her feelings into music, and you see that the actor is probably not playing the piano, it kind of ruins everything that can draw you in, because something is there that can distract you. Overall, when it comes to Hell's Kitchen, I feel like Alicia Keys fans will like the music. Those familiar with the story will enjoy it as well. And anyone who likes jukebox musicals will definitely enjoy what Hell's Kitchen is trying to offer them. However, I do feel that when I saw it, it's definitely not something that feels like a must-see, but also a luxury to see. Like, if you have the money, why not? But if you don't, it can definitely come off as something that's just a new revenue stream for Alicia Keys. Maybe a potential Tony nomination if this has the legs, but to be quite honest, I think just like the Cher musical, Donna Summer musical, Britney Spears, etc., while this may have a moment, especially after it opens and it may be popular for a little while, I don't expect this to become like Mamma Mia or other musicals which have been on Broadway for years, based off of not only the musician involved, but also the talent on stage for. As much as Miss Lewis and Mr. Dixon definitely kill things on this, they're supporting roles. Strong supporting roles, definitely notable supporting roles deserving of accolades, but supporting roles nonetheless.